Herculez Gomez, Edson Alvarez is in the headlines again. Yes, because of some transfer rumors, and we'll get to those in a second, but also because of the comments of Wesley Sneijder, okay? And they're not very flattering comments from the Edson Alvarez perspective. Here's what the former Dutch international had to say to Futbol International. Quote, Alvarez only passes the ball backwards and sideways. He's of no use. Ajax should have taken him to London quickly. You could have signed two good players for that amount. Of course, Sneijder referring to the reports that Chelsea offered 50 million euros for Edson this summer, an offer which, of course, Ajax reportedly declined. Herc, what do you think of the comments there, the shots fired from Wesley Sneijder?
Shots fired indeed, unwarranted. The tone leaves a lot to be desired. It's one thing. Of no use, a little harsh. But the overall message of what you could have done with the 50 million asking price of Edson Alvarez and the team that was in need, Chelsea at that moment. We even heard that United at one point, his former coach, Ten Hag, they're looking for his services. You could have done a lot with that money. You don't sell him, so now you're going to have to wait and see if there's another desperate club willing to shell out that kind of cash for Edson Alvarez. So the tone is unwarranted. But the message, the overall message of what you could have gotten for him, two different players for that kind of money, I think we're both in agreement with that.
Okay, look, Ajax did a lot of selling in this past transfer window. So they brought some money in. They probably needed to hold on to some guys for some bit of continuity in the team. So I think Edson plays a big role there. I think Edson was also a very good player, one that clearly Sneijder doesn't rate. But I would just go back, Kirk, to the game this week against Liverpool. You see him stacked up against one of the best in the world at his position, Fabinho, right, who's 29, in his prime, playing that sixth role for Liverpool, and Edson more than held his own. If you look at where Ajax fell apart in that game, it might be down the right side with Jorge Sanchez. That's a discussion for another time, but Edson was really good, especially in the first half, man. Ajax were really, really tough for Liverpool to handle. So I think Edson is a much better player, whatever you think of what they could get money-wise for him, than Wesley Sneijder's letting on here. I think we agree there. Yeah,
but
correct?
He does have a point of using the desperation of those clubs against him. What other club is going to come in with $50 million worth for Edson? And I agree with you. It's also not the first time that Edson's been criticized by somebody in the Netherlands. I mean, remember it was De Boer, then it was Van Basten talking about how he needs to be better technically, and he did. Yeah. He improved those technical deficiencies, and he became a very good player at Ajax. That's what he does. Edson's been shutting mouths, callando bocas for the majority of his career. The tone here, it's what doesn't sit well with people.
Yeah, I don't like the comment about passing the ball side to side. I don't think that's accurate either. Especially, again, I go back to his most recent performance.
Well, his only job is to win the ball and then play it out. That's what you want out of the defensive midfielder. So I don't care if he's threaten the ball, threaten the needle, if you think he plays it backwards, whatever. His job is to protect the defensive line.
Yeah. He is adding an offensive element to his game, though. We've seen some goals, and if you saw the game, again, I'll just refer to the most recent performance against Liverpool. He's crashing into the box quite a bit there. So let's address the transfer rumors, Herc, because there are plenty with Edson Alvarez. Yes, Manchester United, he's been linked there. Erik ten Hag, his manager at Ajax. He's still linked to Chelsea, which we know was very interested in him as recently as this summer. But the most recent bit of interest comes from Spain, Herc. Sport is reporting that Barcelona is indeed interested in Edson Alvarez as a replacement for Sergio Busquets. What do you think?
This one's a little difficult to digest. And why? Not because...
You don't think he's at the level of Barcelona?
No. Not because I don't value Edson Alvarez. Because there are certain DNAs for certain players. There are certain DNAs or clubs, their style that benefit certain players. Nothing in Edson Alvarez's demeanor, style, aggressiveness approach identifies with Barcelona.
He plays for Ajax. Where do you think the Barcelona system comes from?
Yeah, and look how he's heavily criticized there. Busquets, everything Busquets can offer you is exactly the opposite of what Edson is. So successor to Busquets, I don't buy. If you said Man United wanted him before Casemiro, I would have said, you know what? I could see it. Chelsea with Kante right now, N'Golo Kante right now being injured in his future, so much uncertainty of whether he leaves to PSG. I can see it. Certain clubs you can see. For the life of me, I cannot see Barcelona, Edson Alvarez, and that marriage, that merger being productive. You tell me if you see him that level and that style.
I do see him, and you know what I'll say about this?
You
He's
hate
very
Barcelona,
different from
and you want to see Barcelona be unsuccessful.
Crash and burn? No. That's the other host of ESPN SC. Sergio Busquets the other day in the Champions League is getting run by. He's literally rugby tackling Musiala, the young player for Bayern Munich, okay? Now, Edson Alvarez is not Busquets. He doesn't have that vision. He's not that player. He's not going to break lines with his path. But if you need a little more physicality in that midfield, if you want something else in that midfield, which many would suggest Barcelona need, I think Edson could provide it. Of the places where he's been linked, or maybe there's somewhere else that you see, where would you like to see him take that next jump? Or do you think he's not ready for it? Because I would say at 25 right now with the World Cup coming up, it is darn near the perfect time. It is the perfect time, and I was surprised he didn't go before the World Cup. Two things can happen. He blows up at the World Cup, and he's gone. It's a record transfer for a Mexican player. He's going to beat Chucky Lozano's transfer fee record, or he has another abysmal World Cup. The first one, we're going to give him a pass for because he was 18 years old. It's your first World Cup. You were put in some very difficult positions by Juan Carlos Osorio. You played everywhere in that back line. It didn't go very well for you, but it was a learning experience, and you are the player you are today because of that. There is no so-so with Edson. It's going to be that way. I think Edson is built for a different type of football, a more physical type of football. I would love to see him in the Premier League. I think that's more his style, and he can get away with it. And technically, he's not as bad or as difficult as most in Netherlands would like him or see him to be. I think it's Premier League for him. All right, so Edson Alvarez then on some big radars, including the radar of Wesley Sneijder.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.